Today we're very excited to greet Eric, K7RKU, our Turlock Amateur Radio Club president, has graciously agreed to take the time and let us chat with him today for a little while and show us his shack. Tell us a little about yourself outside of ham radio, work, hobbies, background, that sort of thing.
So I've been working for a while as a physician. I started out as an orthopedic surgeon. More recently, I have gone back for a little bit more education, and I do things like wellness medicine, where we help do hormone restoration and thyroid management, IV nutritional therapy, things like that. So it's a nice way for me to do a type of medicine that I really enjoy doing as I become less interested in working 80 hours a week.
I wonder what first sparked your interest in amateur radio.
So as a young kid, about 8 to 10 years of age or so, I remember my dad having a ham shack inside of his boathouse. He had a boathouse because he was building a sailboat that he was going to sail around the world in. And I remember he had postcards from Fiji and all these places, Samoa, the places that he wanted to go. And then he had a big map with a bunch of pins in it for contacts that he had made on HF. So anyway, I remember him having a lot of old military surplus gear. And he had one of those, those Dymo label maker things, right? And on each of the pieces of equipment, he would have his call sign, K7RKU. And so, I had some interest in it. Passing, I was just a little kid. And he says, "Great, we're going to teach you how to do CW." So he gave me a straight key, CW straight key. And he says, "Hey, I'm going to send this home with you and learn how to do CW." I'm like, "Great." So anyway, obviously that didn't really happen at that time. But interestingly, later, now I'm very interested in CW. So trying to learn that at this point. So it was my dad that originally got me interested in ham radio.
So you have your dad's call sign now?
I do, yeah. So my dad is a silent key, and I always had this idea that I wanted to become licensed as a ham, to honor my dad in some ways. Plus, it was a hobby that I was very interested in myself. And to be frank, when I got started, it was like, okay, cool, I'll get my license, and then I'll remember my dad that way. And then, of course, as I learned more about it, I'm like, wow, I love this hobby, and it's a great hobby. So, as you guys are well aware, so many different facets to the hobby. You can, do just the computer side of it. You can talk all day if you like. You can work on some of the, I would say, networking or the repeaters, the structure of communications, emergency communications or otherwise. And so many different ways to enjoy ham radio. And obviously it's very kind of science heavy, or can be. And I love science. I was actually trained as an engineer. I have an engineering degree from college before
I didn't know that.
School. Yes, I graduated as a structural engineer. So anyway, I love the science part of it, and so that's one of those things that holds my interest.
What about your first experience on the air? Do you remember that and what it was like?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I remember some early experiences. I remember my first HF contact. I had a Yaesu FT991A, which is a great radio, love it. And I bought a chameleon vertical antenna. I had been messing around with different antennas, and I always had this idea that I wanted to build my own gear. And so these projects would usually get about 75 to 80% done and then sit in a box for about a year and a half. Probably you guys may have had that experience as well. But anyway, so I bought a pre-built antenna, a chameleon vertical antenna, and I just set up in the backyard when it came, and I was like plugging stuff in and reading the instructions, and I thought, well, this is cool. And so I tuned up on 20 meters, and I heard this guy calling CQ for Parks on the Air from Arizona. And I thought, well, I can hear that guy pretty well. Wonder if he can hear me. So I answered him back, and that was my first HF contact. It was fun. And the guy was super nice. I told him, hey, this is my first HF contact. What am I supposed to do? He's like, well, tell me this and tell me that. Give me a signal report. And so, it was really typical for the goodwill that I've seen in many ham operators, which is, we want to get people involved in the hobby. We want to welcome people into learning how to operate radio. So it was just a super great first contact. He sent me a QSL card, which I have. So yeah, it was a very awesome experience.
Great. That sounds very familiar. The not knowing what to do when
oh my goodness,
after you've made the contact. And
I know. I feel like the dog that caught the car. I'm like, well, what do I do now?
Which bands or modes have you tried so far, and do you have any favorites?
Let's see. I've done just a tiny bit on 80 meters. I've tried a little 40 meters, probably 20 meters I've used more so. I got my first CW contact on 10 meters. Greg at KN6ZGE and I were up doing a POTA activation near Ripon at, I think it is Caswell State Park, if I'm remembering right. So anyway, we had done we had done a little bit on 10 meters and we were kind of done. And so I thought, oh, I'm gonna poke around in the lower end of the band because that's where the CW is gonna be. And so I did, and I heard a guy calling CW slow, calling CQ, pardon me, slow. I'm like, great, this might actually work because the guy was, it was just about a speed that I'm like, I think I could probably understand that. So, and it sounded like the guy was sitting across the table from me. And so I'm like, gosh, I said to Greg, I think I might be able to get this guy. And he's like, well, go ahead. You got nothing to lose. I'm like, well, I guess you're right. So I answered him, and I knew enough to recognize my own call sign in CW, but that was about it. So the gentleman that I contacted, he railed back a bunch of CW to me, and I'm like, I have no idea what this guy's saying or doing. But anyway, I kind of knew some of the little signaling things for the exchange, and so we were able to get the signal done, or the contact done. And interestingly, I knew enough to send, but I couldn't understand anything that was being sent to me. So I told him, leave more space between the characters. I spelled it out, of course, with CW. He slowed down a little bit, but I was still so new that I didn't understand what was going on. But it was a wonderful, fun experience. I discovered that the guy was in Arlington, Texas, which is in between Dallas and Fort Worth. And he sounded clear as a bell on 10 meters from Ripon, California. So that was my first CW contact. I wrote him a letter. I said, hey, man, thanks for being such a good guy. Thank you for being patient with me. It was my first CW contact. And so he wrote me a nice letter back. He says, hey, hang in there, man. You're going to get it. And you did great. And welcome to CW. And so just really a wonderful, nice experience. And I have a QSL card from him as well.
I was going to ask you about where you mostly operate, from home or portable or club activities, and it sounds like you operate a lot of portable.
I do, because I don't have a permanent antenna up yet. Here at our home, we recently did, significant remodeling. I mean, like we had to move out of the house, kind of remodeling type of a deal. And so we're really just kind of moving back into the house over the last several months, and I just haven't quite pulled the trigger. I have a good idea where I want to put a permanent antenna. I'm trying to decide if I want to do infed random wire or an infed half wave. And I'd also like to get a 2-meter antenna set up so I can run the net from inside the house. That would be nice. Right now I do host one of the weekday morning nets, the bacon and eggs net for our club is what it's called. And my station is out there in the front yard. So I always haul out my gear and set up and plug together and then run the net. So it's been actually a really fun experience. And for me, it's a nice thing to be able to understand, like, oh yeah, I gotta have these 4 things to make everything work. So in an emergency, I'm like, wait, do I have my 4 things? So I think that's useful, right? And I know that some hams have been critical of the Parks on the Air thing, like, it's trash, it's clogging up the bands. Well, here's the thing. It's getting people out. It's getting them used to understanding how to use their equipment in a setting that isn't their regular ham shack. And it's keeping interest up in the hobby. So I couldn't disagree more with that sentiment that I described. I think it's a great part of the hobby. And so I'm doing POTA sort of in my front yard every week, or at least operating portable.
Okay, so let me ask you about becoming president of the club. You're fairly new to ham radio, and
Yeah.
you're already the president. How did that come about?
So I was interested in helping the club through leadership, and so I called up the president. I said, "Hey, do you still want to be president?" And she's like, "Yeah, I do." And you really don't want to be president as your first job. So I said, "Okay." So I ended up being secretary for a year, which is good because it helped me understand how the board functions and all that kind of stuff. And then the following year, I thought, you know what? I have some ideas that I think will really help revitalize the club, right? Renew interest in the club, help make the club a nice place for new hams, a welcoming community for people who were, frankly, and like I still kind of am, it's like, man, I'm still really learning a lot about ham radio. And so we wanted to really build the future of the club by bringing some new blood in, people, and making it, I feel like, sorry to get sidetracked here, but I feel like really one of the primary functions of a ham radio club is to foster the hobby in the area. And it does have a significant social component, right? People like to go hang out with people that have similar interests to them. But really, I think one of the important parts of the club is to get people who have an interest, turn them from simply having an interest to somebody that has a license, and ultimately to somebody who knows how to use their radio and enjoys the hobby. So
I have a couple more questions about that same thing that you may have already answered partly.
Okay.
But what do you enjoy most about leading the group?
Oh, well, there are days that are easier as the club president and days that are longer. And, I think the most gratifying part of it is being able to put some of these ideas that I was just describing into practice. And you guys may have noticed that we have more people at the club lately, club meetings. Our membership is growing. We're leveraging some more modern technologies to help make it easier for people to become part of the club or to stay informed about the club. And so that's been very nice. I think that we collectively, both the members and the board, have really achieved a lot over the last calendar year. And I'm excited to see that continue. We still have lots of things that we can fine tune.
Has being president changed your own experience in ham radio?
Yeah, I do less radio operating. I do. I'm kidding a little bit, but just because of the time involved in managing things. And it's not that it's a super burdensome office. To be frank, part of it's kind of on me because I am that perfectionist guy. I will, like, if I'm going to write an email out to the club, I think it could probably be done in a few minutes, but for me, it takes 45 minutes because I want to rephrase it or I want to proofread it, and that's just me, so I just have to kind of live with that. But yes, it can be time consuming. So I've operated a little bit less than I'd like to, and as I get better, I think at being president, I foresee having more time to operate radio.
What projects or activities are you most excited about in the coming year?
Oh gosh, well we've just started doing our fox hunts after a number of years absence. Thanks to you gentlemen, to you Don and Kevin, and so that's awesome. I really enjoyed the POTA outings, and I had spoken to another one of the club members that is very experienced with POTA, and I said, hey, how do we make this work for a group? And he says, well, it's a challenge, right? Because the question is, are people going out because they want to get an activation, right? Do they want to get those points on the POTA website? Or are people going out because they want to see how we do portable? And do they want to just make an HF contact? And what we found, at least in our group at this time, is it's mostly that second part, right? So people just want to come out, spend some time with other hams, see how we operate portable, figure out kind of what kind of a setup is needed or works for this. And like, oh my gosh, I just talked to somebody in Oklahoma, that kind of thing. So that's been really a very fun part of some of the changes that we've made.
As a newer ham, what advice would you give someone who is just starting out in the hobby?
Yeah, most definitely. So I guess if for someone who has an interest in ham radio, even if it's a passing interest or even if it's a technology interest, maybe people are like, I don't know what I want to get on the radio and talk for, half the night. Okay, great. There are lots of things. Ham radio is so useful. And I'm kind of that, I don't want to say I'm a preparedness guy. I'm always that guy that's worried about some catastrophe that's going to happen. Maybe that's just me. But so, for example, I like to do some off-roading in areas where there's no cell coverage or very poor cell coverage. And so the ability to have a lifeline in the form of radio contact, that's very cool to me. And that makes ham really practical and very useful to me. So there are so many different ways, again, that ham can be used, both from a technology point of view. You can do Arduino projects, you can do APRS packet stuff, you can carry an HT with you when you're out in the woods or off-roading or camping. So anyway, I would encourage anybody that has an interest in the hobby, man, to jump in. It is very easy to get that first license, the technician license, and not too much harder to get the general license. So as you guys know, the There are several versions of each exam, right? The technician exam and the general exam and the amateur extra exam. So there's several different, there's a big pool of questions, and then they just pick a certain pool of questions, and they'll call that test A, and then they'll pick a different pool of questions and call it test B, for example. So anyway, those questions are all known, right? So the questions and the answers are available. So, one of our club members, Terry, always jokes, hey, I just memorized the answers. And to be really frank with you guys, I memorized the answers too. I was sitting around during the pandemic, and I thought, man, I'm super bored. I have no excuse not to finally do some of these things I've been thinking of doing. So I thought, okay, cool. So I got one of these books that really just emphasizes the correct answers for each of the questions. And so I went through I'm blessed with a really good memory, and I started memorizing answers. And I went through and I thought, you know what, I'm going to see if I can get all three, right? The tech, the general, and amateur extra. I guess I'll just keep taking tests until they tell me, hey, you didn't pass that one. So anyway, so I spent about 2 weeks of real legit academic kind of studying, just like several hours a day, writing, taking notes, all that kind of stuff. And I was able to get all three levels of licensure at the same sitting. So I got them all for $15. It was $5 per level. That seems pretty good. Anyway, so there's a modest fee to take the test, but the tests themselves are really not so hard. Certainly the tech test is very easy to get that foot in the door. So I'd encourage anybody that has an interest, man, just jump in and find a club in your area that is welcoming and likes to foster folks who are interested in ham. And we're doing our very best to make Turlock Amateur Radio Club that club in our area.
Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with fellow members?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we find ourselves at a very exciting point in time for our club, Turlock Amateur Radio Club. From my point of view, we see a lot of growing membership. We see a lot of growing interest. I think we're really developing some very positive momentum, and it's a great time. I feel like, when the market's going up, buy some stocks. And I feel like, hey, our club is getting incrementally better, by the month. It's a great time to be involved in our club. And so if you are involved with our club, be proud of it. We're building it. It's going to be a better club a year from now than it is today. I think it's a better club now than it was a year ago. So we're putting in a lot of energy, just like you guys being out here doing this video for me. I am very appreciative of that. And it's a great example of members taking initiative to make the club better. In whatever capacity. It could be a small capacity. It could be like, yeah, I'll bring cookies to the meeting. Great, perfect, that helps. It could be like, hey, I can serve on a committee, or you bet, I have some video coming. I'll bring it over. We'll get a video. We'll see where it goes. It's perfect, and I really am very grateful and thankful to you guys for doing that, and would encourage all of our members to look for some little way in which they can help build the club.
And we wish you the best of luck with that. It's going to be an exciting time, I think, going forward.
100%. We're doing great, and we have nothing but, I think, blue skies ahead of us. Obviously, there are some challenges, of course, that come up time to time. Just in terms of, for example, we're renegotiating the lease on our repeater site, our main repeater site, which is a big, big deal for our club. So, things that we're like, man, I hope that goes okay, but it's all going to end up being fine. And thank you. Thanks to the club members, really.
Thank you for your time today. We really appreciate you sitting down and having this interview with us.
Of course. Thanks, guys, for doing it. Okay, so I have a collection of various radio gear. You start with something, and then you get into something else, and then something else after that, and that's how people end up with 17 radios. So anyway, I originally started with a Yaesu FT991A. Great radio, very happy with it. I switched to this new model from Yaesu. It's an FTX1, and it comes with this portion, which is intended for portable operation. It's UHF, VHF, and HF, all modes, and it has a battery that attaches to it. So it's a very nice option. It's as you see it here, it's QRP basically. I think the max you can get out of it is 6 watts with just the battery pack. And the thing that you see behind it is the amplifier that mates to it, right? So they're intended to connect together in a fairly seamless manner. And it's not too hard. It takes, 30 seconds to put it all together. No big deal. And with the amplifier on it, you get an antenna tuner and you get 100 watts of power. But of course, all the front end where, you're setting the bands, adjusting the filters, and so on is exactly the same. So that's a nice convenience. It was kind of widely panned on social media when it came out, like, it's too expensive, or it won't do this, or what, it doesn't do this. And I have actually been very pleasantly surprised with this rig. I think it's actually a really nice radio. I'm that guy that likes to have a really fine resolution on the screen so that I can see a little bit better about the waterfalls and so on. And so for me, that's a really nice luxury. And I just haven't, I've used it to run the net, our VHF, UHF net on a weekly basis, but I haven't had a chance to get out and use it as much as I'd like to. I've only had it, I don't know, a few weeks is all. So that's the FTX1. I read somewhere that a nice option was to use a headset and a hand trigger to control the push to talk. And so I ended up buying that, and I really do like it. It really makes it easy to hear what's going on the radio. And you don't have to worry about a foot pedal that gets dirty or whatnot. So this is a nice option for me. Of course, it comes with a regular handheld mic for those who like that. So this is a little case that I put together. I bought and built what's called a Morserino, and it is a device. It's a little computerized device that helps you learn Morse code, CW. And it will quiz you. It does the Koch method, lesson by lesson. You can use it as a keyer, right? So you could attach like a paddle to it, and it will decipher the impulses and generate regular CW. It will throw CW at you, so throw Morse code at you, so that you can learn how to decipher it. And so it has been a very nice tool for me to get started with CW. And this little, just a little thing I put together, so it has the battery for it, and then I usually put the key. This is my Bengali key. It is really nice. I love it, and it was a very nice luxury that I bought for myself. They come from Italy. That's where the factory is, and the people that run that company are super nice, really responsive. It is a beautiful piece of equipment. In the area that these guys build these keys, there are a number of companies like Benelli or other companies that you might recognize from the gun manufacturing industry. They're great with precision metalworking, and it's a work of art. It is a pleasure to use this key. Now, if I just knew how to interpret what's coming back to me. And this is a little transceiver. It's called a QMX Plus. It's made by a company called QRP Labs. It was fairly inexpensive. I think for all in, including the enclosure, the whole bit, I think it was probably $160, $170. It covers 160 meters all the way down to 6 meters. It's low power. It's a QRP rig. It's great with CW. It does have the ability to do single sideband, both upper and lower, of course, depending on which band you're at. So it was a really fun project. You build the majority of it, probably I'd say about 60-70% of the components you solder on. And then you try and figure out why it's not working. At least that's how I did. And then my good friend Tim, WI6NG, helped me debug it, and so now it works great. But anxious to learn a little bit more about using this as well. And then I have Yaesu HT, nothing too crazy. I love it. It's a really nice rig as well. Have a couple of antennas.